A year ago, Dallas traded Luka Doncic to win now. That bet blew up. 26 wins in a season lost to injuries. So this offseason, the Mavericks did something clarifying. They traded Anthony Davis to Washington and fully committed to their consolation prize, the #1 pick, Cooper Flagg. The two timelines are over. This is Flagg's team now. Let me break down the cap. Here's the plan. First, where this team actually is after a disaster season and a franchise-altering pivot. Then the cap reality, what moving Davis did to the books. Then the flexibility they have to build around a teenage star. The roster facts are verified, the dollar figures are projections, and the Davis trade is the new starting point. Let's start with the team. This is game is culture. Quick thing before we dig in, if you like cap breakdowns that show the real math instead of guessing, subscribe. It's free and it helps a ton. Now, where Dallas stands. Where they stand. Let's be blunt about last season. It was a catastrophe. 26 wins, a bottom 3 offense, and a roster gutted by injuries. Anthony Davis, the centerpiece of the Luka trade, played just 20 games before this summer's deal sent him to Washington. Kyrie Irving missed essentially the whole year hurt. The win now plan they sacrificed Luka for never even got a healthy chance to work. It was, by any measure, a lost season. But here's the gift that reframes everything. Cooper Flagg. The #1 overall pick didn't just play, he starred, leading the team in scoring at 21 a game with rebounds and playmaking as a teenager. That is a franchise cornerstone, the cheap, ascending superstar talent a rebuild is built on. Losing Luka was devastating. Landing Flagg gave Dallas a future, and trading Davis means they've finally decided to chase it. And moving Davis is the decision that defines the franchise's direction. For months, Dallas was caught between an aging, injured, win-now core and a teenage superstar. Trading AD to Washington ends that tug of war. It says clearly that this is a rebuild around Flagg, not a salvage job to validate the Luka trade. Whatever you think of the original deal, this pivot is the honest, forward-looking move, and it changes the entire cap conversation. The cap reality. Start with what the Davis trade did to the books. AD was on a massive salary, and an aging, injury-prone big on max money is exactly the kind of contract that can sink a rebuild. Moving it to Washington clears that commitment and the risk attached to it. So Dallas's cap sheet is suddenly healthier and more flexible than it was a year ago. No longer anchored to a 30-something star they have to keep healthy to justify. What's left is a mix of veteran salaries, Klay Thompson and Chris Middleton on declining but real money, PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford as solid mid-sized deals, plus a very cheap young cornerstone in Flagg. That combination gives Dallas decent flexibility, my estimate at least the full mid-level exception, around $14.5 million. With a path to real cap space if they move another veteran, they're no longer financially trapped. And the remaining veterans become the next set of levers. Klay Thompson, Chris Middleton, and PJ Washington are exactly the kind of useful, movable contracts that contenders want, and that a rebuilding team can convert into youth and picks. Having dealt Davis, Dallas can keep stripping win-now salary and stacking assets for Flagg's timeline, or hold a couple of vets as stabilizers. Either way, the cap is now a tool, not a cage. What the pivot unlocks. Here's why committing to Flagg is the smart cap move, not just the smart basketball one. A team caught between timelines spends inefficiently, paying aging stars while developing kids, and ends up good at neither. By picking a lane, building around Flagg, Dallas can finally align every dollar with one goal. Money goes to players who fit a 19-year-old's window, or gets converted into future assets. Clarity is what turns flexibility into actual progress. So Dallas's remaining choice is gentler than it used to be. Build patiently, keep the cheap young pieces and picks, add complementary role players around Flagg, and grow. Or stay mildly competitive, use the veterans and the mid-level to be a watchable team while Flagg develops. Both are reasonable now because the hard decision, moving on from the aging win-now core, is already made. This is just a question of pace. Quick halftime note, if you want every team's cap broken down like this all summer, subscribe, it's free and it helps. Now, the cheap cornerstone that makes it all work. And the foundation of the whole plan is Flagg's contract. He's on a rookie scale deal, which means Dallas gets superstar level production for a tiny fraction of a max salary for years. That's the single most valuable thing in team building, an ascending star you don't yet have to pay. It's exactly why moving Davis made sense. You don't spend big to win now, while your best, cheapest player is just getting started. There's also the matter of what Dallas got back for Davis, and whatever the specific return, the principle is the same. A rebuilding team should be collecting youth, picks, and flexibility, not aging stars. Trading an injury-prone veteran for assets that fit Flagg's timeline is textbook. The Mavs turned a risky, expensive contract into building blocks for the future. That's the kind of trade a team makes once it finally knows what it is. So grade Dallas's flexibility, and it's solid and rising, much better than a year ago. Moving Davis cleared their riskiest salary. They have the mid-level, more movable veterans, and a superstar on a rookie deal to build around. The grade isn't elite yet, there's still veteran money to sort through, but the direction is finally clear, and clarity is exactly what was missing. Dallas went from trapped to genuinely flexible in one trade. And there's a franchise pride wrinkle worth naming. Trading Luka was a historic gamble, and dealing Davis a year later is, in a way, admitting the win-now plan failed. That's hard for an ownership and front office that staked their reputation on it. But to their credit, moving AD is the mature call, prioritizing the future over saving face. Letting go of a sunk cost to chase a better one is how smart franchises recover from mistakes. Where could I be wrong? The exact cap space depends on what Dallas got back for Davis and which other vets they move, so treat the dollars as estimates. And if the front office still feels pressure to win soon, they could spend the new flexibility on veterans instead of stacking youth. But the shape is clear. Dallas has cleared its biggest risk, kept its cornerstone, and finally has a direction, all of it pointing at Cooper Flagg. So that's Dallas's cap reality, a disaster season, a generational rookie, and a clarifying trade that sent Anthony Davis to Washington and handed the team to Cooper Flagg. Now the question is how aggressively they build around him, and next video, the realistic free agents who fit the rebuild. Tell me what you'd do below, and we are so close to 1,000 subs, so subscribe to stay up to date.